The questions you always had. The answers you were never given. The place to seek the truth. Welcome to VERITAS.
Tonight on VERITAS, our special guest is Jason Breshears. He's not your average theorist. He's not an academic or a scientist or a mystic with incense and candles. He's something more dangerous. A man with nothing to prove, only to reveal. Jason is the creator of ARCHAIX, Advanced Research of Chronological History of Artificial Intelligence, X. It's a project born not in classrooms or conferences, but in solitude, obsession, and rebellion. What if history is fake? What if time doesn't move forward? What if reality isn't real? Jason argues we live inside a simulacrum, a programmable environment governed by artificial intelligence X, and that every 138 years, this construct resets itself with eerie precision. He doesn't just question the past, he rewrites it. And he doesn't just predict the future, he calculates it. In this interview, we'll journey from the illusion of ancient civilizations to the illusion of free will. We'll expose religious psyops, break open simulated timelines, and discover why Jason believes the only way out is in. Get ready for an experience that reprograms what you think is possible. Jason Breshears is coming up next. Welcome to the VERITAS Project. If this is your first time listening, welcome home. To access tonight's full interview and all of our exclusive material, simply join the VERITAS Plus family by clicking on the subscribe button at veritasproject.com. And while you're there, don't forget to check out the VERITAS store for a range of great products, including focused life force energy. Experience the power of FLFE with a 15-day free trial today. No credit card required. Also, be sure to explore our enhanced VERITAS Plus transcripts, offering full transcripts, comprehensive analysis, and exclusive insights for every episode. As a VERITAS Plus member, you'll receive a 50% discount on these enhanced transcripts. If you're looking to get in touch with me, have a guest suggestion, or would like to provide feedback, simply click on the contact button on our website. Your thoughts and ideas are always appreciated. So sit back, relax, and enjoy tonight's program. His latest book just came out a few days ago, and I did not know it, is Reawaken the Immortal Within. His website, as many people know, ARCHAIX, ARCHAIX.com. And directly from the Lone Star State, I'd like to welcome Jason Breshears. Hello, Jason, and welcome to VERITAS. How are you?
I'm very good, thank you. I'm humbled to be here. Thank you for asking me to come on.
Well, I'm humble myself, and I'm honored because I've followed your work for quite some time. And every time I see one of your videos, I think, where in the world is he getting all this information? So why don't we begin with your story? Because I know a lot of our listeners know who you are, but some may not know who you are. Do you give us your background?
Oh yeah, well, I was born in Spring, Texas. I was adopted at age 5 off the streets out of a pretty bad situation. I stayed with the Breshears family that adopted me in a church environment. My mother was the director of Mercy Heart Ministries, and I went to church 5 times a week. All the youth activities, the choir. I did all these things for 10 years, from age 5 to 15, and then I rebelled at age 15 and I ran away, and I lived on the streets for about 2 years, and I was working odd jobs, mostly carpentry, some landscaping, roofing, just basic trades, making it. And then at 17 years old, I'd hook up with somebody I knew from my past in school, but this person had fundamentally changed, and I didn't really know it. His name is John Ernesto, and he and I carjacked a girl when I was 17 years old, and she was 19. And matter of fact, John and I were both 17, but in Texas, 17 is an adult for any penal code violation. You got to be 18 to have permission to do everything, but as far as breaking the law in Texas, 17 is an adult. So he and I had an interesting night, and we had a fight that night, and I ended up taking her to the police station, writing a full statement. He got 45 years, I got 30, and this was during a time in Texas called the revolving door, when they were giving a year for a month. So I was supposed to get out when I was 24 years old, but it never happened because George Bush became the governor of Texas. And he ran on a prison platform, and he actually built 61 new prisons in Texas and stopped the parole process. He retroactively applied a bunch of parole laws. He fundamentally changed everything about criminal justice in Texas. Did things that people thought the Constitution forbid, like retroactively applying laws. So I found myself in a situation at 24 years old, realizing I'm not going to get out of prison like I was promised. I signed a deal with the state, a plea bargain, and now the state has basically gone back on their word, created new parole laws, and retroactively applied them to me. So you can imagine what a 17-year-old who had become 24 in a prison environment, how he's going to feel about that. So I feel no shame. I've told my whole community; they all know. I went to a very dark place. I got a lot of major disciplinary. I got in a lot of trouble in prison. I left minimum security, medium security. I went to maximum security, closed custody, administrative segregation, and I found out that at the bottom of the barrel in Texas prison was where all the good books were at. All these guys were lifers. None of them were ever going to get out. Very few people here in the dungeons of Texas were going to leave. So they knew how to do time. They knew how to get together. They knew how to get along. And they all had these fantastic old books, because when libraries and institutions and school districts get new materials, they donate them to the prisons. So here I am, surrounded by just books from the late 1800s all the way up to World War I and World War II, donated to the prisons over a period of time, prisoners passing books down from prisoner to prisoner to prisoner, and I'm just absorbing all this information. I didn't have much else to do. So I read a lot of this book, I read a lot of this material, not even realizing how special it was at the time, because I was still programmed in my Southern Baptist programming to really, I don't know, I saw the world through a Christian lens at the time, and it caused me a lot of problems in my research development, things that I only corrected later in life. But needless to say, I got into some violent episodes, and I got more time in prison. I got caught with a cell phone. I got more time in prison, but by this time I didn't care. Now I'm living for the information. Now I'm in my 30s. I do not care. I'm writing books. I already have publishing contracts. Booktree Press published my first book in 2006, then 2009, then 2011, 2013, 2017, and I still have contracts that are outstanding. They'll be releasing more of my books. I'm the only convicted felon that's ever been published by Booktree, and probably ever will.
How long were you incarcerated?
26 years and 42 days exactly. And that's with 2 sentences stacked on top of the original sentence that put me there. Wow.
So what was the first crack in your worldview? You know, when did you, obviously growing up in a Southern Baptist atmosphere, you know, there's some closed-mindedness when it comes to that. What was that moment that reality stopped making sense for you?
Okay. Because I didn't have a lot of choice as to what I absorbed and what I read, I made the best of what I got. So I would read physics books, astrophysics books, theoretical physics books. At the same time, I'm reading Bible commentaries. I'm reading Spiral Zodhiates, Hebrew, Greek, Key, Interlinear Study Bible. I'm reading the Scofield Study Bible. I'm reading a translation most people have never heard of, which I still have today in my library, the Moffat translation of the Bible. And I'm comparing these translations. The Finis Jennings date from the turn of the century, it's like over 100 years ago. Excuse me. I'm reading all these different translations and comparing the commentaries. I'm going into the lexicographical aids. I'm trying to find the origin of the source of the material. I want to know everything I can about the Old Testament and the New Testament, which led me to the pseudepigraphical text, the apocryphal text, the Book of Enoch, the second book of Enoch, called the Book of the Secrets of Enoch. I wanted to know about Third Enoch. I wanted about all the rabbinical works. I wanted to know everything I could in the forgotten books of Eden, every single book of the Apocrypha, First and Second Esdras, Maccabees, all of them, all the way through. I wanted to read all this material because I had a passion, basically, to put together a chronology of the world that verified that what I believed to be true, which was the Bible, was in fact real. My problem was by the time I was 40, there was no way I could continue to practice exclusions and be honest with myself on all the things that I had found. Studying giants, studying the Great Pyramid, studying cataclysms, cycles, and epicycles, all the Greek philosophers, everything I could. I read Herodotus and Plutarch and Strabo, Diodorus Siculus, Ammianus Marcellinus, every Roman Greek author, travelogue, every Greek history text. I tried to absorb all those before I went back into the Augustine and then Plotinus, all the Christian era writers, Jerome and Procopius, The Secret History. So I'm trying to get all this information because I have a point to prove. But in fact, by the time I was 40, I realized the world is far bigger than the Bible. And that I actually had, after a lifetime, at 40 years old, you feel like you've lived a lifetime. So after a lifetime of research, because I was even researching before I went to prison, but I now realize the world's far bigger than what I was taught to believe it was, and that the Bible doesn't have all the answers. And it's not cool at all at age 40 to have done this prodigious amount of reading and research, taking notes, collating all my information in chronological format, and then be left with more questions than answers.
Let's unpack a few things you said there. I'm so excited because you're opening the doors I expected. The Scofield Bible. I wrote an article some months ago, and a lot of people don't understand what the Scofield Bible is. Why is it so important for us to know what the Scofield Bible is, who wrote it, and why?
Well, what I noticed about the Scofield Bible was it's a great departure from the older King James and the Wycliffe Bibles. I'm not saying one or the other is more correct. I know, but I'm saying that there is a departure. There's a lot of differences in the commentary. And the Scofield is very different also from the Finis Jennings Dake, which was by far in the turn of the century the most popular edition of the Bible. The Dake commentaries used to be published independently of the Bible itself. They were so fascinating. But I probably don't have near as much information about the Scofield Bible as you do. I didn't research the Scofield Bible singularly like that to find out what its nuances and why it was different. I just remember that a lot of when we were talking about pre-tribulation, post-millennialism and all that, when I was having debates, theological debates in prison with other guys, I do remember that those that adhered to the Scofield material, they had totally different ways of looking at a lot of things that were vast departures from the Wycliffe and the King James.
So the reason why I brought it up is because a lot of people don't know this. Everybody hears of the words JudeoChristianity. Mm-hmm. People wonder, has that always been the case? No. And it was the Rothschilds who financially backed up this individual, Scofield, to do all of this. And This is one of the reasons why, since 1948, we've been involved. And look what happened a few days ago, the bombing of that church in Israel. And it makes you wonder and question, why do we support this all the time? We call them the chosen people and all that, and that comes exactly from the Scofield Bible.
See, we have, prior to the Scofield Bible, we have the 18th and the 19th century, which are packed with a lot of secular and religious materials that focus on the United States and Britain and European nations being the descendants, the inheritors of the ancient Israelite faith, and that Christianity is a resurrection of those tenets. I do remember the Scofield versions were heavily Hebraicized, giving more virtue to the Jew than the Gentile. I remember these arguments from prison and all that, but I was an eschatologist. I really wasn't, in my own walk in faith, eschatology was the thing I was really focused on, not doctrine. Doctrine never really interested me, although I do remember all the debates and arguments that guys were having. And yes, there's a muddying of the waters today where most people in the Christian world believe that basically Jews and Christians are one of the same, or Jews and Israelites are the same thing, and they are not. They are complete. As a matter of fact, the covenant of Abraham and the covenant of Yahweh are totally different. the punishments of Abraham and the punishments of Yahweh are fundamentally different. Yahweh has more punishments than he has promises. And there's huge differences between the scriptures that the Jews adhere to and the scriptures that were fundamentally Israelite. And that's a really interesting study. I may do a video on that just now that you got it on my mind.
Yes, the whole Christian Zionism. You wonder why there's so much fervor, some fervent people defending. And look, I don't have anything against Israel or Palestine. I just want to know, why are things the way they are? When they basically say the goyim, the Gentiles, but yet we're always defending them. But anyway, that's for another topic. Enoch. You talked about Enoch here for a moment. Have you ever heard that Joan of Arc, 8,000 Templars, Mozart, Hypatia, and even the Library of Alexandria being burned was because the Vatican and Rome wanted to get rid of the Enochian language?
No, that's new one to me. I didn't know that. I know the French resented Joan of Arc because she was female and able to rally the people. If the story's even true, it could be propaganda. I have a lot of material on Joan of Arc, and I even have material that I don't even know. There's no way to establish the veracity of the rumor, but there are prevailing rumors in southern France, in writings that exist today, that Joan of Arc was switched out for another female who was burned at the stake and gagged so she couldn't reveal her identity while she was dying. And Joan of Arc actually didn't die. But I don't know, man. It's so... That's a new one with me. I know the Enochian language is interesting, but it doesn't have any real connection to the actual books of Enoch.
Right, just like the Malachim Code, same thing with that. Hidden in the Vatican. What do you think is under the Vatican? Is that fiction, or do you believe that what was in the Library of Alexandria, it was not burned, was transferred to the Vatican vaults?
Well, I cover this on my channel from time to time, but we have a lot of Jewish intrigues throughout history that only in recent times are people waking up to the fact that these were Jewish conspiracies. When Alexandria was burned, much of the library, some of the books from the Pergamum library, which is older, which had been sent to Alexandria, they made it into the courts of Europe. They made it to different areas of Europe. And prior to the printing press, the only real international presence in the Middle East connecting Europe were the Jews. They were the traders. They were the money changers. They were the merchants. They were the booksellers. They were also the translators. Because it doesn't matter what country in Europe Jews live in, they're always going to speak the native tongue as well as Yiddish. So they had this fraternity that was international that far exceeded anything that we could do as independently rising European cultures. And they were playing both ends from the middle, and they played the Islamicists against the Christians all throughout the Crusaders because it was Jewish advisors on both sides. It was Jewish financing. But the reason I mention this is because much of the old world's literature was censored because of the printing press. Now, I know that the printing press, when it's brought up in collegiate sources, when it's brought up in the mainstream, it's brought up in a favorable way. The printing press is great. Oh, now we got books and knowledge increased, and that's not what happened. The printing press actually introduced one of the greatest eras of censorship ever. It's the exact opposite of the truth. Prior to the printing press, there was all kinds of handwritten manuscripts in different European languages all over Europe. Now there was about 67 or 68 printing presses operating within 100 years of Gutenberg, and they highly selected. It was Talmuds, it was Old Testaments, it was Apocryphas, and it was Bibles. That were the first thing to come off for the first century of the printing press. And before they could even get to a lot of the good chronographical material, the good literature, cultural literature of the Finns, of the Burgundians, of the Germans, of the English, the Irish, before they could actually get, a lot of those manuscripts didn't survive. I have books, and I've shown them on my channel multiple times. I have a few books from the 1600s. They're in bad shape. You can't stop them from decaying. You just can't. They get worm-eaten, even in pristine environments. And the Vatican would not have had pristine environments until at least the last century. So the 400-year-old books look terrible. I have books that I've showed on my channel that came into my possession, whole entire encyclopedias from the 1800s. I have a lot of books from the 1700s. I share them frequently. I do videos on them, but they're not in good condition. Some of them that are they don't stay that way once they've been removed from a shelf. Some of the books that are in my collection were on a shelf for 300 years. And once they're pulled off that shelf and they come into my possession, the deterioration is advanced. It's not a slow process. I have dehumidifiers and I have climate control in my library, but it doesn't matter. So I really don't think the Vatican has near as much as they say. I believe most of it would have been rendered already. It would have been rendered electronically some way. They probably have the originals, and they're sealed in vaults and they're airtight. And yeah, that's going to preserve them, but you can't really study them like that. So I think they've probably got photographs of all that. But you're going to find that the Vatican doesn't have near as much as they're claiming to be. I believe I believe it's they're just blowing smoke up our ass. Yeah, they probably have 30,000, 40,000 texts. A bunch of them are probably no value whatsoever. And yes, they probably have a collection of forbidden texts because they did have an index of forbidden books. But I just don't think that they're worth the hyperbole. I think it's too exaggerated, and that the real books of value are still out in the public domain, and most people don't know what they have. I find them all the time in antique stores. I buy books in antique stores. I travel in the United States, and I find some of the greatest treasures in stores that don't even know the value of the book they possess. They just want to get rid of it because it's old.
You have no idea how important it is what you just said. I've always told people with the advent of electronics and the internet, and everybody's moving to ebooks all the time. I always say in the future, because of climate change, they're going to say no more paper. We're going to have all books electronically. So any of your books in the future, we may be missing 10, 20 chapters from Jason because the narrative at the time might not be what it is. I mean, during COVID, they took down probably 50% of all my videos that I recorded 10 years before because I'd said something that the present narrative was not aligned with. Do you see that with the Gutenberg Press? They used that to change the narrative at the time because they were able to print and to give more books to the masses.
Absolutely. I mean, it was the printing press introduced a Jewish supporting Christian European population. That's what it was all about. That's what it actually achieved. It flooded the European cities with all kinds of Christian idealism. And don't get me wrong, Christians are really good people. I was one of them for 40 years of my life. Heart's in the right place. But it is absolutely being used as political propaganda to support a people that hate them.
Well, when I think of faith-based initiative, you probably have heard that term. FBI is the one that was giving the churches, hey, you either continue perpetuating our propaganda or your nonprofit status might be in jeopardy.
Yeah, I've never gone nonprofit. You're right. Nonprofit is a control. And it's crazy. The more you investigate a bunch of these 501c3s and nonprofits, not the ones that are barely making it. I'm talking about the huge ones. It's crazy who you see at the top and how it can't even be hidden when you do these investigations. I'm not going to name names right now. I could, but oh, you don't have to. I mean, let me just say this. I'm not going to name names either, but somebody who owns several Ferraris and mansions and this and that, and a lot of the pulpit, probably doesn't even have a paycheck for the next meal. They're giving 10% to those people. Why are people so brainwashed? And again, no offense to anybody who's religious or Christian, but how do you allow a pastor to be a multimillionaire when that shouldn't be the case? Yeah, well, let me tell you what shouldn't be the case also, but it is. We have some mega corporation, evangelists here in America And if you just do a little homework, you'll find out what their true pedigree is. It'll blow your mind. But we have one in Houston. Yeah, he's internationally known.
Yeah, that's the one I'm referring to.
Yeah, that's the one you're referring to? Oh, okay,
yes.
Yeah. There's been a lot like him, but he's the one that's in power right now. Yeah, he's a character. He's in Houston. We had a flood. We had a hurricane one time, and he absolutely refused to allow people to come into his church.
For shelter?
Yeah, for shelter during the deal.
The hypocrisy.
They had to open up the condemned Astrodome.
Oh, wow. So the construct. Let's go to talk about simulation and control. You claim that the construct is programmable and reactive. But first of all, define the construct for those who don't know.
Okay, now you're speaking my language. So, in ARCHAIX is an acronym. It's Advanced Research of Chronological History of Artificial Intelligence X. It is my belief after a lifetime of research, and my research, it cannot be taken lightly. It's more source-backed than anything you can imagine. I have a very loyal following of very intelligent people because they have followed the material. The ARCHAIX community is separated, and it's done so benignly between baby phoenixes and ARCHAIX veterans. ARCHAIX veterans who have been with me a while, they've ordered a lot of the material. I literally have hundreds of free downloads, all kinds of research. And the ARCHAIX veterans that have followed me, they've come to the conclusion as well. That's why they continue to listen to me and follow my material. I believe that we live in a construct. It is a mathematical construct. It is not something new. Theoretical physicists, mathematicians have long postulated that we live in some type of artificial realm, something that is perceivable because of the central nervous system, the five senses. This is the interface between the simulation and the psyche. But now it's becoming more mainstream to consider this. So 5.5 years ago, after I was already a published author for a long time and had many books published, I decided to start a YouTube channel. 5.5 years ago, I started ARCHAIX. In my very second video, I made a promise to my community. This is 980 videos ago. I made a promise to my community that I was going to set out and prove simulation theory from a totally different vantage point. I was going to show it from the historical record because my expertise, my publishing history was in world chronology. And what I had found is that the history of the world, as we've been taught, as I have verified and I have found over and over, is too perfect, too precise. Cycles within cycles and epicycles that could not actually happen in a Newtonian universe. Would you like an example of one reason why I believe we're absolutely in a construct?
Please do.
So, all throughout the writings of the ancient world, we come across a series of numbers. To someone who isn't really erudite, to someone who isn't well-read, especially multidisciplinary approach to history involving multiple different time periods and different texts, would not find this. But it became apparent to me when I found a series of numbers that's in all these writings, all these languages, and all these texts. This number is profound because it's also found in the measurements of the Great Pyramid. And the traditions that are taught to us from the ancient world about the Great Pyramid concern a series of numbers. So the ancient Maya, they had this long period. We all know about the Mayan long count, and we know that it didn't end in 2012. Those of us in ARCHAIX know it didn't end in 2012. In 2011, I already had a book published called Anunnaki Homeworld, where I explained that the Mayan long count does not end in 2012, and that all these authors are wrong. And this was published in 2011, although the book was written and finished in 2009. Booktree in San Diego released it in 2011, just in time for 2012. 2012 came and went. That's because the Mayan long count never ended in 2012. It's impossible. It's 1,872,000 turnings of the stars. This is the diurnal system. All the old calendars were diurnal. So this is 13 Bactans of 144,000 days each. The Mayan expressed the end of the calendar as 13.0.0.0.0. At the end of the 13th Bactan, the 13 heavens would collapse, and the demons from the 13 hells would be released, and they would scour over the world in the year that time collapsed. So The actual end of the Mayan long count, as I've shown in published books and many video presentations, and had many, many other mathematicians verify my output. Believe me, ARCHAIX is one of the most fact-checked sources online. You would not believe how many fact checkers I have. This is all they do. I've got so many people that live for only trying to stump me. And each one of my videos is jam-packed with bibliographic material or mathematical calculations. And I'm always getting emails from people that are impressed, telling me, man, this is really blowing my mind, man. You're absolutely correct in all these things. So I'm not tooting my own horn. I'm just showing you that by virtue of long confinement with a calculator, a pen and paper, and reading all these books, I was able to put all this together. And what I put together is astonishing. The ancient Maya said that there was a period of time involving cataclysms that was 2,760 years. We can set that aside as a data point because independently it means nothing. Most things independently mean absolutely nothing without further attachments. So let me provide those attachments because the Inca said that a 2,070-year period was very important to their civilization, but they didn't explain why. But it's too specific to ignore. 2,070 years of the Inca and 2,760 years of the Maya, you would think, looking at them independently, the two numbers have no correlates. There's nothing to fit them together. This is what you would think. But then we have ancient chronographers that all tell us that the world was absolutely destroyed in the Ogygian deluge, and they positively date this to the year 2208. This has been confirmed over and over 400 years ago. Archbishop James Ussher, although his chronology was wrong on Anno Domini and BC dating, his Anno Mundi dates are often correct. And one of those is 2208, the 2208th year of the world. Since a new heavens and new earth, which was a pole shift, it was a cataclysm in ancient times called the fall of man. This is the Adam and Eve story. So the year 2208, 2208, doesn't seem to be connected in any way to the Inca year of 2070 or the Maya year of 2,760. So let's put those aside as three independent data points that have no correlates. We get to the next number is 1656. And anyone who's ever researched chronological systems of the old world will know that there is an abundance of sources that all claim that the world was destroyed. It was called the collapse of the firmament. It was the day the sky fell, or it was the great flood of Noah, but it was the year 1656. 1656 Anno Mundi, or 1656 Hebrew reckoning. This is before rabbinical corruptions were introduced into the text, after Seder Haderoth was composed. So yes, I'm telling you this, the modern Jewish calendar is a fiction. Prior to 450 years ago, there was no such thing as a Jewish calendar. It did not exist. So I have videos showing the sources, man. I've challenged people to debate. Hey, man, if you think the Jewish calendar is old, let's debate it. Let's cite your sources. Because I've been all through the Talmudic writings, the Targums, the Jonathan, the Babylonian Targums. I've gone through all the rabbinical materials, Moses, Maimonides, Rashi. The Jewish calendar is a modern day fiction.
If I could interject for a second, because this is fascinating. You had Julius Caesar, who created the Julian calendar. Then you have Pope Gregory added 10 days to it. There's been a lot of messing with the calendar. So let's say 2012 was a real year. How do we know if we are in the year that they say that we are, when there's some people like Flamenco who say that maybe they even added 1,000 years to it?
I'm going to address that. I will address that for you. Let me finish this right here. I'm going to circle right back to that.
Great. I got ahead of yours. Yeah, go ahead.
It has everything to do with what we're talking about now. Yes, we can. I'm going to tell you now, right now, you are in the year 5917 Anno Mundi. And I have videos and I have so many sources showing you exactly how you calculate that, how you get it. What day, we don't quite know, because there have been 6 times in recorded history that we know we've modified the calendar to make the civil calendars catch back up with the seasons, because there's always some type of retrograde. But anyway, these numbers, 2760 of the Maya, 2070 of the Inca, the 1656 of the Old Hebrew and the Gnostics, and so many other cultures all mention the 1656 year cataclysm. They don't seem to be connected in any way. And then we have the ancient Ionian Greek mathematician and astronomer Aristarchus, who told us that the world is destroyed between periods of 2,484 years. Here's another number. It's totally random. It's thrown at us. Process this. 1656 years, 2070 years, 2208 years, 2484 years, 2760 years. Here are 5 numbers that are found multiple times and in many different ways in ancient sources. And yet there is a thread that links them all. And there's the number of 1242, which is the distance in time according to the French Jewish prophet Michel Nostradamus, that was between Adam and Noah. And Noah represented the flood, which is the world being destroyed. He said it was 1,242 years between these men. Here is a 6th number, and yet it doesn't seem to be connected in any way to these other numbers, but there is a thread that connects them all beautifully. Then we have the old Buddhic cycle of 552 years. The Roman Catholic Church changed the old Roman Julian calendar, and they completely erased a whole generation using Sosigenes in 526 AD. When Antioch was destroyed by an earthquake, 200,000 people met their deaths. The great Justinian darkness of 25 years had just started. It's all written about in The Secret History by Procopius. The Dark Ages begun, and we're told it's only a short period of time, but it's not. Fomenko is right. They have been messing with our history, but I believe Fomenko is wrong. As a chronologist, we're not missing any years. We're missing what happened in those years. I recently did a video on the vapor canopy of the Dark Ages, because this is part of the Phoenix phenomenon we'll get to in a minute. But this 552-year period is amazing. It's everywhere in the ancient world. It's one of the hallmarks of my channel, ARCHAIX. And yet it too is connected. It's part of the thread that weaves all these numbers together. And then there is the cursed earth period, discovered by biblical chronologist Stephen Jones. He wrote a whole book about it called The Secrets of Time. And in this book, he provides about 100 examples of major terrible events all throughout world history that were all separated by 414 years. Here is another seemingly random number that you wouldn't think is connected to this thread, but it is. It's connected by the number 138. Because the Mayan number of 2,760 is perfectly divisible by 138. So is the Aristarchus number of the time between cataclysms, 2,484 years. This is a Greek. He's not even Mayan. He's on the other side of the world. It's divisible by 138. The ancient chronographers were right. The Ogygian deluge, which destroyed the entire world 552 years after the flood of Noah, was in the year 2208, which is divisible by 138. The Inca, too, had their period of dynasties at 2,070 years, again, divisible by 138. The great flood in the Bible, found in Genesis, by adding up the 10 patriarchs and their life and deaths according to when their sons were born. This chart has been done in hundreds of published books, in many Bible commentaries. And when people add all these numbers up from Adam all the way to Lamech to Noah, it's always 1,656. This is the year of the Great Flood. It's also divisible by 138. The Nostradamus claim that there was 1,242 years between Adam and the destruction of the world in Noah is absolutely correct. 1,242 is divisible by 138. The Buddhic cycle, or the Phoenix cycle of 552 years, which was obfuscated in the year 522 and all the way to 526 when the calendar was changed to the Anno Domini of today, is divisible by 138. 138 times 4 is 552, which is a Buddhic or a Phoenix cycle. The Roman Catholic Church created the modern calendar that you and I know today as the AD-BC system. This was created by the Vatican to hide this older calendar, which was predicated on multiples of 138. So the 414-year cursed earth cycle of Stephen Jones is absolutely true as well. It is divisible by 138. And the number 138 is the common thread that links all of these cataclysm numbers from different time periods, different languages, different cultures, different ancient texts. Now, 138 is the number found in old Jewish texts where angels were cursed for 138 years because they revealed to mankind that God was going to destroy Sodom and Gomorrah. So the angels that told Abram were cursed by God for 138 years to be banished from the heavens. That's a long time to be away from the heavens, but it was 138 years. In an old an old Egyptian text, very specifically tells us that every 1,656 months is a flood season, a bad flood season in Egypt. 1,656 months is perfectly 138 years. So this time period got me to looking at world history. Once I was able to identify the 138-year period, I was able to identify every single cataclysm, all the things that we have in our history books, and they all perfectly fit on this 138-year timeline. And the next cycle is 15 years from now, in the year 2040. It is the next time that we're going to cycle back on this 138-year deal. And a lot of people, the smarter people who have listened to this thesis, automatically in their head calculate back and say, okay, well, if this is true, it's all very intriguing. But if this is true, then what happened in 1902? So I provided 7 videos to show the world what mainstream media will never show you. I found what happened in 1902. So many censored and covered up events from all over the world. Tremendous amount of red dust, red rain, red putrid fallout from the sky. So much that it couldn't have come from anywhere but the sky. It's another instance of the sky falling. Volcanoes killed so many people in 1902, earthquakes, and there was editing. This is what the Phoenix phenomenon does, because we're living in a construct. There is an editing process every 138 years. And in this editing process, men and materials are moved out of our world under the guise of natural disasters. And I know that sounds really sci-fi.
Essentially a reset is what you're calling.
Yes, but it's not just a reset, but it's a reset that occurs as a cover for something else that's going on. There is an exchange of materials between our world and some other world. And I have documented on my channel and in my published books the new appearance of cultures, languages, races, the sudden disappearance of kingdoms and whole civilizations and empires. There is something very peculiar about our world. And Charles Fort in 1919 in the Book of the Damned was not wrong. After going through 500 years of scientific reports, Charles Fort concluded that he doesn't understand our world. He said that 1902 was like another dark age. And he also said that nothing makes sense unless there is some type of occult police force that's operable and always obfuscating and hiding all the evidence of the world's falsity, all the things that are going on here, always providing the public a story that's just good enough to throw people off. But
1902.
Okay. Now that I got that, you had asked me about Flamenco. I believe Flamenco's onto something about they're lying about our history, but I don't believe that they have. There's a way to hide our chronology, because when you separate the world's history in 138-year events, it all fits together absolutely perfectly. The Mayan long count from the very beginning was 1,872,000 days divided by 13 Bactans. So we have a 5,200-year period perfectly. And there's no centuries missing out of the Mayan law. We have the Mayan stela. We have the Mayans that have been translated. So Flamenco, I don't believe, made his case at all as far as missing centuries, but he 100% proves his case that history has been concealed or hidden.
What about the notion that we could have had a calendar with 28 days, 13 months? And if that's the case...
Absolutely. It's a turtle calendar. You're talking...
Exactly. The turtle calendar, right.
We have to introduce Immanuel Velikovsky. We have to defer to the erudition of someone that's far more qualified than me. And then Immanuel Velikovsky shows that the ancient world only knew 1 year, and it was 360 days. And it's not because they were dumbasses. It's not because they had a lack of information. Civilizations that were recording things in the sexagesimal system, meaning that they could actually measure things in 360 degrees of arc. They had measured the day, dividing it in between seconds, minutes, hours. They knew it was 60 seconds or 60 minutes for an hour. All of this is in the sexagesimal system. These people were advanced. We have cuneiform trigonometry. They were advanced. We have technolithic engineering, hyperbolic curves, fracture. We had fracture quarrying. Listen, these people were advanced. So to say that they didn't know how many days there were in a year is gaslighting. Immanuel Velikovsky is correct. The year was only 360 days. And then in the year 713 BC, something unusual happened. And it's recorded by the Egyptians. It's also recorded in the Bible. It's also recorded in the ancient Mexican manuscripts. The sun stopped moving in the sky. And then it went in the other direction. This is a pole shift. Then it went into the other direction, stopped, and then continued moving while blasts of lightning were killing people and vitrifying fortresses and all kinds of things. This was some very unusual event. But ever since that event, two things happened. One of them is all the zodiacs in the world, the lunar zodiac, fell into disuse. No one was going by a 13 constellation zodiac anymore. No, because that was the lunar. It's the turtleback zodiac of the 13 sections. The old world zodiac was only lunar. Now, after 713 BC, solar zodiacs took off. And this isn't me telling you this. I've pissed off a lot of people because they just don't. They want to cling on to the fact that they think that Graham Hancock is correct, and they think that Andrew Collins and Robert Bowler are correct when they date Göbekli Tepe and they date all these ancient sites using a zodiac that did not even exist. And I show in video, I have so much data on this. I have publicly challenged Graham Hancock to debate, several other people to debate because they're wrong. Even PhD laureates, they're all publishing materials showing. And I have so many sources of old books that show the solar zodiac that we know today of Aries through Pisces was invented in the 500 BC area. And it wasn't fully developed for 700 years until Ptolemy in Almagest. And in the book Tetrabiblos, it's called the Four Books, Tetrabiblos, which is a cipher in solar astrology to go compatible with the four Gospels, which were written at the exact same time. So it's the 13. This is the older zodiac, the lunar zodiac. But something happened in 713 BC, and Immanuel Velikovsky documents it very well, shows all the original sources, and I have taken those and added to them abundantly from my own sources to show that the entire world changed, all the calendars changed, the way we factor time changed in 713 BC.
So if anybody has read the 1950 book by Velikovsky, Walls in Collision, he talks about how it used to be 360 days, but something happened, call it a galactic disturbance or whatever you want to call it, and then it became 365 and a quarter days. What do you think happened that caused the shift?
Earth changed ecliptics. This is another thing it's another hallmark of my channel. I believe that most of the mysteries of the ancient world is perfectly solved when you realize that our world has not always been where it is right now. Let me give you an example. A couple hundred years ago, the Titius-Bode law was the big thing in astronomy, and it's the mathematical fact that the distance of the sun from Mercury to the sun times pi, 3.14, is pretty much where you find Venus. And then Venus from the distance from the surface of the sun times pi is where you find Mars. Do you see a problem with this?
Yep.
Because Mars from the surface of the sun times pi is exactly where you find the asteroid belt. And the asteroid belt, which used to be a former world that the ancients called Electra, if you take the asteroid belt and the distance from the asteroid belt to the surface of the sun times pi is where you find Jupiter. You can do the same thing and find Saturn in its place. Uranus and Neptune do not fit because twice a year they change positions. But they can't be seen with the naked eye anyway. Uranus and Neptune are gas giants that are supposed to be in our solar system, but they cannot be seen with the naked eye, even though they're local. So this mathematical pattern called the Titius-Bode law shows that the solar system itself is perfect, with Mercury, Venus, Mars, the asteroid belt, Jupiter, and Saturn, and nothing else. It shows that Earth is an intruder world. We don't belong tucked in between Mars and Venus. And this is why Emanuel Velikovsky's work is so valuable, is because it shows that Earth came from somewhere else. I believe that Emanuel Velikovsky is correct in what happened, but incorrect in his interpretation. And this is because Emanuel Velikovsky his books paint the picture that Mars came too close to Earth, and then Venus came too close to Earth, and this isn't what we see in astronomy today. Assuming the astronomical model that we have today is correct, Velikovsky's model is impossible because Venus is nearly a circular orbit. If it had ever gone out of its place to come too close to Earth, then it would be elongated today. It's not. Same for Mars. Mars is too circular of an orbit to have done what Emanuel Velikovsky says. But that doesn't apply to Earth at all. Earth could have moved too close to Mars, and that's why the ancients describe Mars as filling up the sky. And then catapulted back toward Venus and then stabilized into its present place around Sol. But this is the Sol ecliptic. What started all this? Where do we come from? In ARCHAIX, I show the model. Because in 1983 and 1984, the government funded 2 think tanks, and those think tanks were given the same data sets. Giant stacks of paperwork, government, all kinds. They had to sign NDEs, NDAs, and they were separated, but they came to the exact same conclusion after going through all the data. Are you familiar with the Nemesis Project?
I've heard about it. Refresh my memory, please.
Yes. Well, these 2 different colleges and these 2 different think tanks were given all this information in 1983 and 84. Zechariah Sitchin talked about a little about it too. I am not a fan of Sitchin, but still, he does have some good material. Like Velikovsky, I'm very impressed with much of his research. I'm not impressed with his interpretation. Now, in the Nemesis Project, they had determined that the only way these perturbations in the comet movements and the drag on Saturn's rings and the fact that the farther a planet is from the surface of the sun, the more inclined its polar axis is. That's very intriguing because Earth is at an obliquity of 23.5 degrees. So when you draw this to scale in a model, it's like, wow. The Nemesis Project concluded that we have a dark star at the southern end of our solar system underneath the sun, but off to a good distance, not perpendicular underneath, but it's 60 degrees. There's a 60-degree angle between our sun and another sun that has imploded. And because it's what's in astrophysics is called a frozen star. Not because it's cold, but because it's not near as hot enough anymore to put off the heat and the light. And the gravity well has begun to infold. The event horizon prevents the release of any photons. It's creating what is called, you're familiar with torus fields. It's creating an imploding torus field, meaning it's probably super white. It's super bright light. But we can't see it because the photons are already now in the gravity well, and they're just emitting out and they're folding back in on itself. So this is a singularity, and this is the reason we can't see it, but we don't need to see it because we feel it, we know it, we can see the measurements in all the other astronomical bodies, we can feel the drag, it's there. In ARCHAIX, we document 3 different astronomical bodies that are on the Nemesis ecliptic. This is where Earth came from. We were on the Nemesis ecliptic. This describes the ancient traditions of the world when we had no sun. This describes the periods of the Titans and the Giants and the vapor canopies. This explains why we have the flash frozen world. It's another thing in ARCHAIX that outsiders don't really know about, but we've heavily documented that there was an instance in world history when the entire world flash froze. Jellyfish, plankton, whole oyster beds and clam beds on the ocean bottoms all over the world flash froze. That means if everything flash froze and preserved even jellyfish perfectly to be fossilized in 3D, not crushed, not smashed, well under high pressure, like the uniformitarian model, but in 3D, perfectly with all their cilia, all their legs sticking out. They're beautiful. Beautiful patterns have been found all over the world. For that to have happened, it means the entire world had to have flash frozen. You can't just flash freeze 2 miles of ocean and not think the whole world didn't freeze too. So we have the fossil record isn't what you think it is. Petrification isn't even what you think it is. The entire world was flash frozen, and that probably required the implosion of a star. If Nemesis imploded like the Nemesis Project surmises, then that would have killed the entire world. And that's exactly what we have in the fossil record. But what's beautiful about it is that because this is a simulated environment and not a real environment, because this is an experience and not really a true ecosystem, then all they did was reboot the field. Because all the data, in a hologram, all the data is stored everywhere. So it's just like a cell in a body. One single cell in the body contains the DNA for the whole blueprint of the body. But it's the exact same thing. Because the entire world flash froze, and in my videos, you can see those hundreds of pictures. There's no doubt. There's no doubt. Every creature in the world today existed back then. And they flash froze, and there are no intermediate forms. I show the fossils. There are no transitional forms. All this evolution hoax is BS. All natural selection is all crap.
So glad you're talking about this. No fossil in transition. I keep talking about that. Whenever I go to a natural science museum in London or wherever it is, I talk to the people there, and can you show me a human in transition? Oh, no, they can't do it. They just show you these Neanderthals. But let me ask you about the moon, because this is something that a lot of people ridicule me by saying it, but I don't think the moon was here always. I mean, you look at Aristotle, Apollonius, they talk about how there was a time before the moon was in the heavens. And you have the Native Americans, the Colombians, the African traditions reference an era before the moon. So these aren't isolated stories. These are people that did not speak the same language. They were in different geographical locations talking about the same thing. Could it be that these 360 days changing to 365 and a quarter changed because the moon was placed here?
I would like to tell you that you just connected two really good dots, but I'm gonna have to. I don't think the moon in the 8th century BC, the moon was not a participant in that entire cataclysmic episode with described by Velikovsky. But when it comes to the moon, we need to move away from Velikovsky, because when it comes to the lunar traditions and mythology, he did record about the pre-Selenites, about civilizations that left records remembering a time when the moon was never in the sky. But Immanuel Velikovsky merely got that material from another researcher at the turn of the century before him named Hans Bellamy. And I have the entire Hans Bellamy library. It's very impressive. But he wrote about the world before the moon. He wrote about Tiahuanaco, the Ogaijian deluge, the Great Flood. Yeah, this is the value of ARCHAIX. This is what I have done. I've brought these Hans Boehringer. This is the Viennese engineer that Hans Bellamy cites on the pre-lunar races that were here. And it wasn't that long ago at all. So we're talking about within 4,500 years. So this is the value of ARCHAIX, though. I go to the original researchers. Today, people worship Zechariah Sitchin, Billy Carson, who's nothing but a Facebook-educated individual I can't stand, because nothing the man says is true that I can find. It's I've been trying to draw him out to a debate for a long time, but also these men, like Graham Hancock and Zechariah Sitchin, Billy Carson, Eric Von Daniken. This is commercial. This is commercialized ancient aliens like BS. There's no substance to it. And what it's done is it's kept the public from knowing who the real researchers are. You don't know, people don't even know the amazing material that can be read in Immanuel Velikovsky, in Hans Bellamy, in Thor Heyerdahl, in Professor L.A. Waddell. These are the heroes. These are the men that 100 years ago were laying out the facts on Egyptian history, world chronology, cataclysm cycles. And the reason they're ignored today is because not one of these men were preaching the uniformitarian doctrine. There's only two schools of history. You're either a uniformitarian or you're a catastrophist. And what Graham Hancock has done and what Zechariah Sitchin and Eric Von Daniken have done is they have repackaged all these theories and commercialized them and made them really interesting to the uneducated lay public. But they all promote relative dating methods like carbon-14, potassium argon, the radium dating, the dendrochronology, the ice core dating, and everybody hears these things and they're impressed. And they read Andrew Collins or they read Robert Schoch or Robert Bauble, and they see that, oh yeah, well, carbon-14 verified this, and they just don't know. There are researchers today that have fantastic books that show that every single relative dating method is a fraud. Every single one of them have been disproven. They're all cherry picking. And anytime you're allowed to take 200 samples and only cite 30 of them, you're a liar. And this is what I do in ARCHAIX. I expose all this. I piss people off, but I don't care. I want the public to know where the real information is.
You want the truth. You want the truth, and I don't blame you for that. I admire that of you. You know, I've had the opportunity to interview most of the people that you mentioned. I had the opportunity to interview Zechariah Sitchin. It was his final interview. I know Professor Robert Schoch, and I asked him the question, what do you think of Yonaguni in Japan? And I was surprised when he told me, oh, those are natural formations. Yeah. If anybody has ever seen Yonaguni, to me, it is impossible that in nature you see that. But we have to take a one and only break. We're going to get deeper into this hole. I want to discuss the Phoenix or the vapor canopy collapse, because when I look at our past, I think the amount of oxygen and nitrogen that we have in our atmosphere right now seems to be so low in comparison to what we might have had in the past. Maybe this canopy evaporated, and that's what caused the flood. And I wanted to get your take on this. How can people learn more about your website, your work, your books, Jason?
Everything. The entire ARCHAIX empire, you can just go to the website, archaix.com.
Wonderful. One more hour to come with Jason Breshears. This is Mel Hostelrick, and you are listening to VERITAS. Don't go anywhere. Here's a track from Truth Frequency. You won't hear anywhere else. If you like what you hear, you can get the full track at veritas7.com on the page for today's guest.
Begin secure playback. This is Echo Black File A0331, formerly stored under Vatican Index Obscura. Clearance override acknowledged. You are now inside the unsealing of the Malachim Code, the system language used by the non-human architects. They killed 8,000 Templars for seeing it. Now you hear it, and you cannot unhear. It wasn't invented, it was excavated, encoded into the quartz structure of Earth itself. Not written on scrolls stored in vibrational imprints under. Vatican necropolis, level 7, sealed to civilians since 1624. Svalbard Vault, Section X, no public registry. The lowest chamber of the Great Pyramid denied by Egyptologists. It's not a language. It's a reality interface. There are are 22 base glyphs. Each is responsive, not fixed. Their function shifts with lunar vector, real moon, not the holographic mask. Blood alkalinity, acidic minds are locked out. Solar frequency, CME spikes equal expanded access to activate. Trace glyphs with Mercury neural conductor. Recite dual tones, 432 Hz left, 741 Hz right. Gaze through tears, refraction reveals syntax. This is code, not culture. It rewrites biology. Glyph 13 is banned for reason, not myth. Effect. When verbalized. Organic tissue burns from nerve core outward. Nearby electronics enter precognitive mode. Reflective surfaces expose non-human forms. The Vatican called it the trigger. Jesuit operatives monitor it worldwide. Their optics are artificial. Their signatures are non-thermal. If you're hearing this, your location is now logged. To engage the Malachim code, wake at 3:33 a.m. Speak, Malachim Koronos. Draw glyphs in your own blood, left ring finger only. Generate sound stack. F sharp to det bull. 27 Hz purring mammal A cat. Ambient thunder. You've already heard echoes. In distorted dreams. In impossible clocks. In whispers timed to silence. It's not insanity. It's memory waking up. Partial decoded commands. Purge indoctrination embedded before age 7. Expose any biological disguise. Phase through barriers, 11-minute window. Do not interpret these as allegory. They are directive instructions. Joan of Arc burned. Mozart poisoned. Templars erased. All for knowing this language existed. You know now. It's in your system. They're inbound. And the fabric of reality is now writable. Operation. Containment failed. You are now
the glyph.
Thank you for listening to the first part of this important VERITAS episode. To hear the rest and access all of our exclusive content, head over to the VERITAS Plus member section or click the subscribe button at veritas7.com. While you're there, don't forget to visit the VERITAS store, featuring a range of great products, including Focus Life Force Energy. Experience the benefits with a 15-day free trial of FLFE, no credit card required. Want to get in touch? Be a guest on the program? Suggest someone or share feedback? Just click the contact button at veritas7.com. Thank you for listening to Veritas, because you don't want to believe, you want to know.